Hi BookTube, it's Amy. I'm here with a book that I got in the mail today called A London Book Window by James Milne. And this is from 1925. Nice blue cloth, gold lettering on the spine. This is one I, of course, purchased secondhand. And it is the first of 4 books that I ordered Tuesday evening as part of my quest to dive back into the genre of books about books. Now, I've talked about this before on my channel, that between the late 1800s and about 1930, there were dozens and dozens, if not hundreds, of memoirs of books of this kind published by book collectors about book collecting or about literature in general. And I purchased another book by James Milne last year and read it, titled Memoirs of a Bookman, or The Memoirs of a Bookman, I think was the actual title. But that was a collection of essays by Milne about his own book collecting journey and his own adventures with literature. And A London Book Window appears to be just like that book as well. It is once again a collection of chapters, a collection of essays on various literary topics. And, buying things online, you don't necessarily see the table of contents. A lot of the time on books, you only see the title or the author, and with the case of this book, I didn't even have a picture of what it looked like. I just purchased it with the assumption that a book called A London Book Window by James Milne would likely be very similar to the previous book by him that I'd read. And I was not disappointed at all, because the table of contents here, the chapters and their contents, are very literary in nature. We have chapters on what makes a bestseller. There's one called A Librarian's Anecdotage, Byron and the Murrays, The Romance of Books, First Novels and Novelists. One called Were the Victorians Dull? Short Stories of Quality, The Diary and English Letters, and All the King's English, just to name a few. And they're fairly short chapters. They look like they're not more than 15 or 20 pages each. So this will be very nice to dig into in the evenings. We've got the title page here, a selection of other books by James Milne, one called The Black Colonel, A New Tale of Two Cities, The Romance of Proconsul, The Epistles of Atkins, John Jonathan and Company, News from Somewhere, My Summer in London, and The Gordon Highlanders. But there's no indication whether these books here are more nonfiction and essay collections, or whether some of them might actually be fiction. So as I said, published in 1925, G.P. Putnam Sons, New York. Although this particular edition says made and printed in Great Britain by Butler and Tanner Limited from London. And I believe that's a publisher that I haven't come across in any of the books I've owned before. James Milne has put in a nice introduction here titled A Salute to Adventure with an exclamation mark. And so I thought I would read this Salute to Adventure aloud. And as I was reading it ahead of time, there may be a few moments when I stumble here because the sentence structure isn't the easiest to work my way through. This is a case, as with many books of an earlier era, where you start reading a sentence and it's not clear how it's going to end. For instance, this first sentence, it came to me as a surprise that it ended with a question mark. So, a salute to adventure. May a plea be made for the exploration of the English book world by anybody who wants a fine adventure? It is still a dark country for many people, maybe for no worse reason than that they do not know how to regard it. Other realms are familiar, but this one is the Irwin among them and doesn't happen, or just happens. Now, it is not like that, for nothing just happens, though it is true that surprise is the mother of entertainment. the mother of enterprise. There have always been books in manuscript or in print, and so they are taken as read, fairy things of nowhere. You may whistle a long time for a fairy and not have it appear, unless you know where to meet it, in the gloaming, its time. You have only to ask for a book, and it obliges gladly and quickly if you salute it by name, because that manifests friendship, the sweetest word in life after love. And James Milne was a big fan of commas. Every sentence here is littered with commas, which makes reading aloud quite difficult. And I think I'm remembering I had the same difficulty when I read the memoirs of a bookman, because I think I tried to read some of that aloud as well. And the placement of the commas, which, as I said, are just littered throughout the sentences, does make it a little bit cumbersome. But continuing here. There we fall upon the danger which haunts friendship in all its aspects, that of being taken for granted. Do not commit this foolishness with books any more than with hearts. Both are spiritual and mental, and together they form the burn of the soul, which lies between our world and the other, an eternal romance of two worlds. Yes, when hearts and books are concerned, you must not only be a constant friend, but a lover willing to take risks, as all great lovers do. Certainly women, for what is womanhood unless the divine emprise? And what would it be if it were not? There is hope for the explorer in our English bookland, the moment he can see it colored with the rose blush of a little quite healthy sentiment. No rightly sentimental person would walk up Bond Street in the warmth of noon, or in the coquettish afternoon hour, without wondering, what's going to happen to me before I get to the other end? Nothing does happen as a rule, and possibly that is best, but something might happen, you never know, for Bond Street has a gracious, gallant air, and with its friendly want of width, so that a glance crosses it, a twice gracious, gallant air, which is all the kindling thought. Well, a like torch of imagination and spirituality is needed for the exploration of the English land of books, and in it there will most surely be happenings. It is changeling as well as charming, for it is full not merely of great names and great deeds, but of surprises of all sorts. The Paladin ensign of Shakespeare waves over a field of cloth of gold, on which are blazoned many other names, scarcely less illustrious than his in English authorship. The cloth of gold is spangled with jewels of books, from dignified folios to nimble pocket editions, the trophies of this national authorship. But, if you please, there is something not yet discovered, scarcely perhaps suspected, the pasturage behind the panoply. What is here gravely meant is the warp and woof of England's book world, its state of being, its throb as a delicate, complicated machine, delivering the goods of literature for whoever will have them. They do not fall from heavens so much providential manna, but have to be cared for, Moses-like, on their pilgrimage, else they might perish. Such is the captivating canon which awaits your exploration, offering you color and incident, fancy and fact, rhyme and reason, smiles and tears, yea, 1,001 satisfactions, as in the Arabian Nights' entertainments. Will you walk and talk in it with a seasoned but ever-curious traveler who well knows its ways, the stirs of its adventure, the softness of its caress, the whisper of its confidences, above all, the austere splendor of its beauty? And we shall see what we shall see, hear what we shall hear. Come. The Autumn 1924, James Milne. That is the introduction to this little volume here. So he is guiding us through the English world of books, seen from his perspective in 1924. And I think I may try to do a series of videos reading aloud through the entirety of this little volume. I did this a couple of times last year with some similar books, partnering up with Sean Standfast for a couple of books by A. Edward Newton. And I'm thinking this might be a good opportunity to get me back into making videos. And I think it'll be quite a fun thing to read through, and I'm hoping many of you will enjoy the contents of this book as well. So take care, everyone, and I will see you again soon.